So a few days ago, inspired by Heidi, I went through my fiction bookshelves and I went for one favorite book from each shelf, and then I tried to figure out what was my ultimate favorite fiction book. And today I'm going to do the same, but with nonfiction. So just so you have a bit of a view, this entire section is nonfiction that I have read. Nonfiction, that I have not read is in a hot mess in my walk-in closet and literally fills more closet than, my clothes. Okay, so just looking at this first bookshelf, I loved Dr. Muter's Marvels. This was a really cool nonfiction book that I found just lying out on one of the tables they have at Barnes & Noble, and I am so glad I found it. The right was super interesting about an actual priest that does exorcisms. The well-educated mind, I go back to this often because I am a lifelong learner and always want to learn. And I sometimes do this sort of stuff for myself about classical education and stuff. The Prison Doctor was so good. Emergent Strategy was oh my gosh, you guys. I think I'm way more passionate. Oh, I'm still here. I think I'm way more passionate about nonfiction than I am about fiction. I could literally tell you a story about how much I love each and every one of these. Okay, so I think I'm gonna put The Indifferent Stars Above in my pile of my top nonfiction. This is about the Donner Party, and it reads more like narrative nonfiction because the author kind of follows one family and really describes what went down, and it is just so good. All right, the next shelf. All right, I just want to talk about some of these. This one is kind of like the true story behind the Nickel Boys. So that one is super amazing. This book was the last author tour that I, the last author event before COVID. And Jonathan Safran Foer was talking about how in New York everything was shut down. And it just seems so bizarre to people in Michigan because we weren't there yet. And yet we would be. Breasts is one that I read frequently and reference just because I'm at a high risk of breast cancer. Oh my gosh. This one is really interesting about blood. Oh my gosh, I love these so much. This one is signed. Yep, don't be jealous. This one helped me grow a lot, as a person myself, just reading through some of the stuff that she was talking about in there. This one is underhyped. If you like true crime, this is a story about Michigan with a murder-suicide on a affluent elite college campus, and talks a lot about just violence in relationships. Dang. This one's so good, guys. No one has read this. Mississippi Solo, about this black dude that with no canoeing experience just up and decides to canoe the Mississippi River from the start to the end. And then Through Highways is so good. Being Human. Okay, I am totally picking Being Human by Judith Heumann. She is a woman who I believe had polio, I'm pretty sure, and is in a wheelchair and was even as a child. So she talks about her childhood and about accessibility and about universal design and about how she led a whole bunch of people who went to the Capitol and advocated for disability rights and just more access for people with disabilities. Oh my gosh, you guys, this shelf, I think I need to read even more nonfiction because these books are giving me all the feels. I love these so much. So many of them have deeply impacted my life. So Underground, I'll talk about in a second. Personal Effects is how to be safe in emergency situations, and it's just absolutely amazing what this guy does for a living. And just hearing about someone's job that is unlike any other job that you've ever heard about before, but then also learning how to keep yourself safe in situations that will happen to you at some point in your life. This Is Gonna Hurt by Adam Kay. This is about a gynecologist turned comedian, and it is hilarious. hilarious. We're actually listening to it now in my massage. Like, we listen to a little bit of it each massage, and we are in love. Like, I think I make my massage therapist day. All these are good. This one inspires me. I read it about once a year. Mainly listening to it just because I love her voice so much, but it inspires me to kind of eat seasonally. Oh, so good. Oh, so good. So good. So good. I have a story about being her author escort at LitFest, and obviously that was amazing. I love Madeline L'Engle. Dang, all these are so good. This one is about death around the world and how different people handle it. Obviously super good. This one's super important about how there's a lack of public restrooms and how that impacts certain populations of people and blah, 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 all that stuff. So good. Tell Me How It Ends is about people trying to get into the United States over the Mexican border. So good, so good, so good. Wintering was so comforting. And this one definitely changed my life as far as getting outside more. And What Doesn't Kill You is a really hard book to read if you're squeamish. But I think it's so important to give you a little insight into what it's like for someone who has Crohn's disease. And then obviously this one completely changed my life. Skincare. Oh gosh, so many good ones. With that being said, I'm going with one that was just like plain entertaining. This is basically about this guy who's super obsessed with like what is beneath our feet that is unseen. And it starts with him just exploring like abandoned subway stations as a teenager. And it goes to where he has legit, like obviously written a book where he talks about other underground things. And it's just like really entertaining to hear about different stories around the world, nonfiction, that take place beneath your feet, including this guy in the UK who was digging a wine cellar and just never stopped. He just kept digging, and they called him the mole person because eventually, like, his house or his neighbor's house, I can't remember, like, collapsed because he dug so many tunnels underneath it. All right. Loads of good ones here. Oh my gosh. Okay, so You Were Born for This impacted how I view astrology and turned it into something I actually pay attention to. Ooh, Self-Compassion. This one changed like my thought patterns. I feel like How to Do Nothing also changed my thought patterns as far as the balance between work and life and how I approach life and all sorts of stuff. If You Tell was gruesome and absolutely like harrowing true crime in like a true life sort of way rather than like solving a mystery, I guess. Upstream was amazing. Mediocre, holy shit. It's All in Your Head is about how people often have illnesses that we view as psychosomatic, but they actually are legitimate things that are happening to them. So it's not completely all in their head. There's actual physical things that are happening to them, like seizures and all sorts of stuff that like you can't just fake. So I thought that was really interesting. Huge Ann Patchett fan, especially this one. Dang, girl. I love the story of her and her friend during COVID. The Hot Zone is super interesting. Miss You When I Blink. Dang. This is about American road trips. Desperate Evil is about the Clue house and the murder that took place there. And then obviously Wade Rouse. I met him in real life. He gave me a giant hug. He knew who I was. That's kind of amazing. This is about him working at a prep school as like a mommy handler. He just made everyone happy. So for this shelf, I'm definitely going with I Miss You When I Blink. This book basically gave me the courage to completely change my life and move from a situation I was not happy in back home to Michigan, and just break all the rules and do all the things that were unexpected of me to get where I am today, which is a place where I'm really happy and I'm so glad to be close to family. Mary Laura Philpott actually also wrote me a postcard I'll see if I can flip this over. She wrote me a postcard just saying thank you for loving her book so much, and just for like promoting it. All right, and then we have this shelf. Gosh, even as I look at these and love so many of them, there is a clear winner. But anyway, at least in the city, someone would hear me scream. This is about a gay guy that moves from, I think, California to a town super, super close to my house. So I loved it because it took place close to where I live, and he's hilarious. And he's the same guy from the other shelf that, like, recognized me at an event, hugged me, whatever. He's hilarious. I love him so much. The 5 was really interesting about the women that were murdered by Jack the Ripper, and it's about their story, not about him. And I just felt like there was a lot of similarities between the women, even though they came from different starting points for sure. Reading the Rainbow has transformed my teaching, and I'm in a book club where it's led by the authors, and we talk about LGBTQ texts in the classroom once a month. This one was super helpful, me and white supremacy, just to like read through and journal through and contemplate. Oh my gosh, so many stories about George Saunders. Flourish was super important to me. To the Darkness was hard, about World War II. Dani Shapiro, I have stories about her. Oh gosh, what else? Mutual Aid was super important. Wild, obviously. Dying by Corey Taylor. Not a lot of people talk about this one. This was a memoir of someone who was dying. I can't remember what they were dying of, but I just remember it was really powerfully written and like just really, really well done. The Body is Not an Apology kind of transformed the way I think about myself. The Hiding Place is a classic. Radical Remission, even though I don't have like cancer or anything like that, I think it really allows you to look at how you view your health and just kind of like how you can be proactive about making sure that you have a good lifestyle in place to help when you do encounter something unpleasant. Eat a Story, Why We Sleep is super good, but obviously the clear winner is Cast. This one really changed the way I thought about racism. And yeah, I think I'll talk about that one later, but it just made me see how deep the issue is and how much it goes beyond all the areas where I really thought that it was stemming from, and how like it's such a purposeful thing that people are trying to just keep going and trying to bring Black people down. Like, it's such an active thing, I feel like, and this was really important in kind of changing my view about that. And then this last little shelf, I would say for sure it's Disability Visibility, which is a story of people with disabilities. It's essays from loads of different people that have disabilities, including someone with a cognitive impairment, which I feel like we don't really listen to their stories, especially in writing, very much. So yeah, this was really good to hear about all the intersectionality that people have. You know, they have a disability, but they have so many other identities too, and how they write about them. And like, for example, like clothing for people that are transgender but also have a feeding tube, or, you know, different things like that. Sorry for the PDA. Just to recap, we have Disability Visibility by Alice Wong, Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, I Miss You When I Blink by Mary Laura Philpott, Underground by Will Hunt, Being Human by Judith Human. Let's see, what else? And The Indifferent Stars Above by Danielle James Brown. I can't see the middle name, but Daniel Brown for sure. This is such a hard decision. If I was going for life-changing, I would either pick Cast, which changed the way I view race, or I Miss You When I Blink, which literally gave me the courage to leave a situation I was unhappy in, to change my life, literally like my day-to-day life. And then if I was going for more entertainment, I think loads of people would read and love Underground by Will Hunt. This is a book I think you could put in almost anyone's hands and they would love it. So, drum roll please. I think I am going to pick I Miss You When I Blink by Mary Laura Philpott, because this is a book that literally changed my life. Every single day of my life is different because of that book, because I had the courage from that book to just up and change my life when I was unhappy with a situation in Illinois and move as a teacher in the middle of a school year, quit my job, find a new job in Michigan. I started on Valentine's Day. We had a snow day, so my first day was in a hotel instead of working. But I am so happy each and every single day that I made that change for myself, that I had the courage to not always follow the rules, because I'm typically a rule follower. And as a teacher, quitting your job in the middle of the year to get another job in a completely different state, that's not following the rules, that's not expected. And yet I am so happy each and every single day because of the choice I made. And I get to be by my mom and by my family and by my sweet nephew now, who will be 5 months old in like a week. Like, I am just so happy. And a lot of the changes that I made were just being inspired by the content in this book and how deeply she writes. She's deeply hilarious, but also writes in a very raw, vulnerable sort of a way. So I'm really grateful that I have been able to read that book.